Are you so sad that you're not willing to go outside? Are you so sad that you can't get up for work? Are you so sad that you're not eating? So I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I do a lot of work in the primary care setting. So I actually work in a primary care office doing a lot of what we would consider crisis work in the moment. But I focus a lot on anxiety and depression.
I think everyone already knows how stigmatized this topic is within the African community. And even though we say it's a lot that's stigmatized, I feel like the conversation is still not really had that much. So that's why the Afro Journal were here. We're trying to at least bridge that gap and fill that space. So how can someone spot when they're actually depressed? Because I think, like, for me, I've never had a phase in my life where I'm like, oh, I'm depressed.
Same here too.
I can say I'm sad. I'm worried. I'm not sure what to do. But how can I know this might actually be depression?
That's a great question. And I love what you pointed out. Is like sometimes we experience sadness, right? And so we don't want to pathologize that as like this is depression. The main thing that we want to keep in mind is functioning. So is that impacting your functioning? Are you so sad that you're not willing to go outside? Are you so sad that you can't get up for work? Are you so sad that you're not eating or you're eating too much? And typically you need to have like 5 or 6 symptoms in the course of 2 to 3 weeks for us to diagnose you with anything like that. Okay. So the main thing is like functioning. Is your functioning being impacted by your mood? The biggest thing for men, it's irritability. It's not always sadness. And some people will say, oh, well, I'm not sad. But they're very irritable, more than normal.
I guess following from that, how does one create a space where, we can have conversations with our African parents? Because I know my parents, that wouldn't even be their first thought, It's taken a lot of years to get them to the point where they see it and they can acknowledge that this is something, but it took my younger sister having to break down before they could, see that this is actually something affecting her. So how do we bring people together to acknowledge that this is actually something that's very important?
I think the biggest thing for me was showing them compassion. Because a lot of them came over here and they had a hustle. You don't have time. You don't have time to think about, well, I'm anxious. I don't want to go to work. You came and you hustle. So they don't have the mindset of oh, wow. Maybe me yelling at my kids is not me being angry, it's me being afraid about something. They're not there yet. So showing that kind of compassion and understanding. I think also using their methods, those WhatsApp videos and WhatsApp groups, blasting them with little videos and tidbits. And I'm all about sending my parents research and hey, look at this, or look at how interesting this is. And even using Bible verses and how people in the Bible were depressed and suicidal. How are we different? So it really takes awareness of the culture to begin to have these gentle conversations.
Very beautiful, what you just said, because I feel I've actually never ever thought about it from that perspective. Just kind of it's almost like you're having the same conversation, but in a way that they can assimilate it properly. When you talk about using the Bible, I'm just whoa. If you use the Bible with them, they won't really be able to argue with it that much. No, that's their bread and butter right there.
Right.
That speaks to Chisholm's heart right there.
That actually connects to them, so they're not going to be you're just saying rubbish. It literally is not the Bible. So actually, because I feel the way we have the conversation a lot of the times is expecting our parents to all of a sudden change their mentality that they've had for over 50 years in 2 minutes, in the 2-minute conversation. Just be realistic. That's not going to happen. I'm only 24 years old. I find out, even when I'm wrong about things, you convincing me that I'm wrong is already hard enough. Now, imagine when I'm 60.
And obviously, they always use the excuse that, I've lived more than you. Whatever you can see in the mountain, you cannot see what I can see in the mountain when I'm sitting down. Everyone knows that quote.
Nowadays, we're more obviously pro seek help, pro get help. But how do you know when you just need to pick yourself up and just go and get your work done? How do you know that, and how do you now have that conversation in a way that is still loving, right? Because that's a very dangerous conversation to have, right? Because if you're wrong, it can actually affect the person's life in a crazy way.
I think the African mentality is always like, just get your ass up, move forward, like brute force, like just get out of
Literally.
it. And that is not always the best answer, best solution. So if you could go deep into how to tackle those type of conversations.
Yeah, 'cause there's branches of psychology that are very metaphorical, right? And I kind of lean to that as a Nigerian, so I use a lot of like metaphors in therapy. But I think about learned helplessness, and it was actually based on research. So the researcher put the dogs in a cage and left the door open, and the dogs could come in and out as they please. And after a while, he locked the cage. And so the dog would fight against the cage, and realize, okay, it's locked. So after a period of being in a locked cage, the researcher put the dog back in the cage, closed the door, didn't lock it. But some of the dogs didn't fight. They didn't even try to see like, oh, is the door open, right? And so that's what we call learned helplessness. After a while, after a period of struggling, we might not want to try to push that door open again. So I love stuff like that. And so I might tell someone, is this what you're experiencing? Have you tried and not had much success? And now the cage is open, you're not even trying.
That's so deep.
Yeah.
Think about it.
One of my favorites. And sometimes that's the way I kind of describe like African Americans to like Africans and like first generation, right? Because it's a little bit different. We're more likely to struggle, right? Versus someone who's been here for 400 years and been struggling. Now the cage is open. Yeah. They're not willing to push that cage open.
That is so fascinating. Like, I feel like my eyes just opened up right now. Like, honestly, I'm so dead ass. Because when you said that, I'm like, wow. I feel like that's the way I view a lot of the people that I've encountered in America. Not in a bad way, but just more like, why are you always complaining? Like the door is like
the door, and you can see it, right? You can see the doors open.
I literally came here 2015, I'm working hard, finding jobs, doing all this, and I'm not saying I'm better than them or anything, like obviously my struggles are different. But my head's just like, why are you so focused on this one issue that has that like I don't think it's an issue anymore, honestly, but obviously was an issue once upon a time. Like just let's move forward. But no, it's like nah man, like they need to get through that, and like obviously I'm getting to be more empathetic towards that because obviously they weren't raised in the same situation, the same environment, with the same experiences. So the way people react to different things would obviously be different. So how do you now convince people to get out of that then? Like, because obviously, you know me, I'm a very like, oh, what's the solution, right? That's the way I like thinking about life, but like, how do you kind of walk people through that? I don't know if the solution is convincing them to get out of it or just kind of like allowing them to go through the process as long as they need to. What is that conversation like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I love questions like, if we could wave a magic wand and things are perfect, what would it look like? Right? Wow. That question opens a lot of doors because then we can say, okay, well, what steps can we take to get you in that direction? What would it look like if you were feeling well? What would it look like if you achieved that dream? What would it feel like?